I covered most of the topic here. I'll be showing you actual layouts and photographs of specific areas of the lab animal facility. Some of the photos that I'll be showing you are in our lab, and some are from my stint abroad. So I think these are good experiences, and of course, you would be able to see so that you can check which would be required for your lab animal facility. So let me start off with in the designing of your lab animal facility. I think the most important thing would be based on the needs, requirements, and research activities of the end users. So when we say users, so definitely this would be your scientists, faculty members, research associates or assistants, and students that would be using it. So there is no specific size nor a very excellent design for your lab animal facility. So which means you have to tailor fit it based on the needs and requirements of your research. It could be separate laboratory animal facilities per institution, but usually abroad, there is one big laboratory animal facility that would cater to all the research activities of the institution. So, of course, the laboratory animal facility should provide all the necessary environments. When I say environments, so it means these are different controlled areas ensuring proper care and maintenance of our laboratory animals. So again, it would depend on your research activities, depending on specific species and strains of animals that you would be needing. Another important thing is you need to hire a consultant, and of course the architecture and engineering group or contractor that has a very good track record in building laboratory animal facilities. So the reason for this is because there are so many elaborate requirements for the construction of the laboratory animal facilities. And if they don't have a very good track record, I think this would be the problem in terms of the design and actual execution of construction of your lab animal facility. And definitely all your biomedical research activities would be affected, since a proper design and construction of lab animal facility is very critical for these activities. Now, in terms of the phases in designing a laboratory animal facility, there are actually four phases. And you need to strictly comply with this. And these would be the planning, programming, design, and actual construction and completion of the laboratory animal facility. So, in terms of the planning, so there are three groups or committees that you should form. So number one would be what we call the end users. Okay. So the end users are composed of your scientists, faculty members, your laboratory animal medicine specialists, and of course the personnel for the health and safety, maintenance, management, and engineering of the laboratory animal facility. So this specific group would be responsible for identifying the needs and requirements of different research activities for the planned laboratory animal facility. They need to review and evaluate the proposed designs from an operational perspective, because they are the end users of the laboratory animal facility. And they should also lobby to get the approval from the higher management of the institution. Next would be the design task group. And usually this is composed of the facility veterinarian, the budget manager, and the biosafety representative or officer. So they are the ones that are authorized to make the final decisions on the project design, because they are very much involved in maintaining the laboratory animal facility. And they should also be in constant discussion with the end users so that they can thresh out or resolve any conflicts in terms of the design of the lab animal facility. And they should also ensure that the planning, designing, and construction would be on schedule. Next would be the oversight committee, and this is basically composed of senior institutional officers or managers. So this is usually the admin officers that are very much involved in getting the funds and committing the funds for the design and the construction of the lab animal facility. So definitely they would be the ones authorized to control the budget for this lab animal facility. And of course, they are also responsible for monitoring the development of the design of the lab animal facility. Next would be the programming. So which means that the institution should hire your contractor. So this would involve the architecture and engineering group, or what we call the AE group. And of course, they would be the ones specifically designing and refining the details of the construction of the lab animal facility based on the users and of course the design task group. So there should be a constant communication among the design task group and of course the architect and engineering group. So to ensure that proper planning would be done in terms of the design of the facility. So they need to also double check the following budget restrictions, the schedule, and of course the requirements and the quality that would be needed by the end users of the lab animal facility. Now, in terms of the design, of course, this would be a direct collaboration between the AE group and the, of course, the oversight group. Okay. So it's basically a sequential process of conceptual design, design development, and of course, this would now be the details in terms of the construction documents, the pre-final construction documents, and the final bidding documents. So as much as possible, so the final design or the architectural plan should be thoroughly done so that it would minimize any revisions during the actual construction of the lab animal facility. Because if this happens, if there would be a lot of revisions, definitely this would also bloat the budget in terms of the construction of the lab animal facility. And of course, the last one would be the actual construction and eventual completion of the lab animal facility. So of course, this would be a collaboration of the four groups to ensure that all the design and the specifics of the lab animal facility would be appropriate for its operation, and of course, the research activities of the end users. Now, depending on your research activities, there are different areas in a laboratory animal facility. Some of these may not be applicable based on your institutional or end users research activities. But in a biomedical research that is very active in doing drug development research, therapeutic research, immunology research, or biomedical device development and testing. So these are the usual areas of a laboratory animal facility. So you would have a quarantine room or rooms depending on how many floors in your lab animal facility. There would be procedure room or rooms. There would be specific antirooms and back rooms per animal room. There would be a necropsy room, a storage room, equipment storage room. There would be dressing rooms for the male and female personnel, cleaning area, laundry room. Depending on your activities, definitely there would be a lot of animal rooms. There would be surgery preparation room. the actual surgery room, the recovery room after surgery, the equipment storage room, administration area, kitchen and dining area, and definitely you need a backup generator that can supply the electrical needs of your laboratory animal facility in case of electrical interruption. And there is a separate waste area for the disposal of waste. Now, if we talk about the quarantine, or in some references, you call it the isolation room. So this is usually a separate room that is designated to house suspected sick animals, or when you are buying new animals. So this is used as a quarantine area for those animals. Now remember, in a laboratory animal facility, it's based on the premise that we are buying good quality, clean animals. So that's why the incidence of sickness or illness is really very low, because we try to maintain, of course, a very clean environment for the animals. And if there are only individuals or a few animals that are sick, so normally instead of treating it, we usually cull them or euthanize them in order to prevent infection of other animals in the lab animal facility. So animals in this quarantine room, whether they are sick or they are undergoing quarantine due to purchase and transport, so these animals would be monitored, and of course, it would be checked for their health status, and appropriate clearance would be given by the facility veterinarian prior to entry to the main animal rooms. Now, when we talk about the animal rooms, it would depend the number and the size of the room. There is no strict floor area, but it would entirely depend on the requirements of the end users. And these are usually the things that we consider when we design the floor area and the animal rooms. So the question should be, what would be the species and strain of lab animals that you would keep? The number of lab animals that you would be needing, and the dimension of the integrated racks and cages that you would use. And you need to take into consideration also if you will be bringing certain equipment inside these animal rooms for certain procedures. So it would depend on you. You want, say, a room that can house 50 mice, 100 mice. So it would depend on your activities. And you should project also the number of research activities that you would be performing in a year, or maybe catalog it on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, because this would show the need for the number of animal rooms that would cater to the needs of your end users. So this is just to show you, this is one of the animal room in Japan where I did my graduate studies. So this is one of our rat room. So it's basically housing around 100 rats. And this is where we do our blood collection for hormone analysis studies. And as you can see, this is what I'm telling you, that you need to know how many animals you would want to fit. And then, of course, the racks, the number of racks that can accommodate how many number of cages. And also if you would be bringing in equipment. So what you can see on the right side is the automatic blood collection equipment that we use. So we can actually collect a total of 10 rats simultaneously using this automatic blood collection machine from Narishige. So our group is actually testing laboratory animal equipments for Narishige. And this is the setup in this room so that we can accommodate the number of animals that we want, and at the same time, the specific equipment that we are testing for a certain company. So next would be the anterooms and the backrooms. Okay. So the anterooms are located, this is a small area before the specific animal room. So you'll see the design later on. And of course, the reason why there's an anteroom is you want to prevent cross-room contamination prior to entry to the actual animal room. So usually the flow is from the cleanest to the dirtiest area of the lab animal facility. And you should be entering here to bring in clean materials that would be needed in the animal room. And caudal or ventral to the animal room would be the back room. So this is the area where the personnel would go out, especially when they are done changing the cages and beddings of the animal. And of course, you don't bring the cages, use cages and beddings through the anteroom, but rather you use the back room door going into the dirty corridor for the transport of used cages, waterers, beddings, and other garbage into the cleaning area. Again, you'll be seeing the design later on. So just to give you an idea in terms of the proper human traffic flow. Now, there is also a procedure room that is usually located near the animal room or animal rooms. So basically, this is where you conduct the different technical research activities within your facility. So again, the size and the other components in this procedure room would depend on the requirements of your end users. So you can perform specific say drug administration and other technical procedures in this particular area. You can also place specific equipment here, and you need to calculate that in terms of the space that you would need and the electrical load that would be needed in this particular area. So just to give you an idea, this is one of the procedure room in one of my collaborator at the University of Tokyo, and this is where the different technical procedures are done, and this is adjacent to the animal rooms that houses, of course, the different strains of laboratory animals that we are using for our cancer research. Now, we do have a prep, surgery, and recovery rooms, okay? So these are adjacent rooms. When we say preparation room, so this is where we bring the animals for induction of anesthesia. If there is a need also to give preemptive drugs, usually you can give antibiotics or analgesics, especially for very long and tedious surgeries that can inflict pain to the animal. We're doing it here. This is also where you shave and disinfect the surgical site for the animal. So which means that prior to bringing the animals to the surgery room, so the animal is already prepped for surgery. So in the surgery room, this is where the draping occurs. This is where the actual surgery is performed. And of course, you need to have the setup for your surgical equipments, lighting, and also the anesthesia machine. And of course, you need to consider other equipment that would be needed. No? So there are portable, say, digital x-rays, ultrasounds, or other equipment that is needed depending on the type of surgery that you would use. And after the surgery, we transfer the animals in the recovery room. So the reason for this is because usually there are multiple surgeries that can be done. So it could be the same surgery for that specific study, but it would require, say, several animals in a day in the performance of the surgery. So you need to move those animals that finish the surgery in the recovery room for monitoring and eventual recovery from anesthesia. And from there, they can be transferred to their animal room. So this is, to give you an idea, this is our surgery room in Japan. So what you can see here is the actual brain surgery room that we have. So this is specific for brain surgeries that we are doing in rats. So you can see multiple the equipment that is used for the brain surgery is what we call the stereotaxic apparatus that you can see on the rightmost side. And we have, if I'm not mistaken, there are 3 or 4 stereotaxic brain surgery equipment that we have in order to perform different research activities. No? So what you can see in the middle is uh, me performing the actual placing of the ear bar, and of course the actual surgery for the stereotaxic or brain surgeries. So you can inject toxins, you can inject drugs or compounds um, in the brain ventricles and even in the different brain areas, depending on the type of surgery that you would or study that you would conduct. Now, next would be the necropsy room. No, so this is where we perform post-mortem procedures or on euthanized or dead animals. No, so basically, a lot of the studies that we're conducting have endpoints, and we need to examine organs and tissues, and we need to collect also these organs and tissues for other tests such as histopathology, immunohistochemistry, cell culture, and for other testing. So, depending on your need, you can also do a perfusion setup. So, when we say perfusion setup, so basically we can perfuse a heavily anesthetized animal, perfusing it with, say, formaldehyde or paraformaldehyde, so that we can properly uh, preserve the different tissues that we would be needing for other testing. Now, there is a separate equipment storage room. So usually this is where you place your portable equipments that would be needed for specific technical procedures, including surgeries. No? And usually this is located near the procedure or surgery room for ease in getting and, of course, storing back all this equipment. So again, the size would depend on the specific equipment that you would be housing in your equipment storage room. Next would be the cleaning area. And this is usually divided into the dirty side, the actual cage wash area, the clean area, and in big laboratory animal facilities abroad, you have a walk-in autoclave. So in the Philippines, I haven't seen an automatic cage washing system nor this design clean area, since the automatic caging washing system is very expensive and labor is quite cheap. But you can design it in such a way that you would still do manual washing system, but I think these 4 areas divided would be appropriate in preventing contamination. So the dirty side, so this is where all the used and dirty cages, racks, waterers, or even pans would eventually be transported from the animal rooms in the dirty corridor. And then this would be placed in the cage wash area. So if you have an automatic washer system, so all you have to do is place the integrated racks and cages and waterers to the automatic washer system. That's how convenient it is. But of course, if you're doing manual, then you have to design stainless steel um, washing system so that you would be able to properly wash, clean, and of course, dry your cages, racks, and waterers. So after we wash them and dry them, so you need to place them in the clean area. So this is an area prior to whether autoclaving further those racks, cages, or waterers, or placing in these materials in the storage room of your lab animal facility. Now, depending on your operation, so there would be an autoclave walk-in area, and this is part of what we call the barrier elements of the lab animal facility, especially if you are keeping transgenic or knockout animals. So there should be a provision for autoclaving the waterers and the cages of these for these animals. So for the cage wash area, so basically this is where cleaning and sanitizing activities are done, and depending on your need and budget, so you can put in the pass-through rack washers, the tunnel washers, the pass-through autoclaves, the bedding dispensers, the dump stations, and you can even have a bottle washing and filling station. So in facilities abroad wherein they are keeping thousands of animals in a lab animal facility, so manual washing would not be feasible. So that's why they have this automatic cleaning and washing areas, and even water dispensing areas, so that it would actually save time in terms of maintaining these materials for the laboratory animals. Next would be the dressing rooms. So there would be separate lockers, uh, showers, and of course, dressing rooms for the male and female personnel. So we follow a shower in, shower out system. So the facility should also be providing facility clothing such as scrubs, gowns to the personnel, and also other PPEs such as mask, gloves, hair covers, socks, and slippers, and of course, disinfection materials such as alcohol. So these are appropriate. So whenever each personnel comes in and prior to entering the main facility, so they need to shower in, and of course, prior to them going home, they need to shower out. So there is a separate laundry room. So this is equipped with automatic washers and dryers, so that it would cater, of course, to the dirty clothing and other materials of the personnel, and of course other needs in the lab animal facility, especially if you're doing a lot of surgery. So there are a lot of drapes and cloths that needs to be laundry. And then, of course, you have an administration area. The design and, of course, the size for this would depend on the personnel of the lab animal facility. So there should be an office for your administrative personnel. So for big facilities, they have a separate records room equipped with computers. Sorry, that should be computers, and of course, you can access information in the records room. And then, of course, you have training or conference room. This also serves as an area for actual meeting of the facility personnel. And if you are entertaining guests, so this is also the area where you, of course, transact business in the facility. There's also a kitchen and dining area. So cooking is not allowed, but this is the area where all the personnel can take their meals and also hang out during break time. And of course, there's an adjacent restroom, separate male and female for personnel use. Now, there are also a need for clean and dirty corridors. So again, the reason for this is we want to regulate human traffic flow and prevent contamination in the lab animal facility. So you cannot enter and go out in the same corridor, but it's really well planned traffic flow, and these corridors should be wide enough to accommodate different equipment such as your animal racks with cages, your working carts, and of course other materials that you need to bring into specific areas in your lab animal facility, and also transport them for cleaning purposes. So usually, the materials for your corridors should be of impervious finishes so that it would be very easy to clean and maintain them. And there are also bumpers and corner guards so that it would protect the walls and the doors of your lab animal facility. Now, for the electrical system and backup generator, it's very important. The electrical system for a lab animal facility is very ubiquitous. So there is a lot of specific requirements depending on the type of lab animals that you would keep. So this is the reason why I told you that you need to have a very good track record architecture and engineering team to design it. So of course, all the inputs will also come from the design task group of your institution. Now, the electricity should be reliable because you're doing a 24-hour, 7-day operation. So no holidays, no? So that's why you need to also have a standby generators that can supply the electrical needs of your lab animal facility in cases of electrical interruptions. So these should also incorporate weather protected outlets in wet locations in your lab animal facility, such as your cleaning areas. And of course, you need to take into consideration the lighting cycle control because this is also automatically regulated or controlled. This would also include the HVAC system, so heating, ventilation, air condition system of your lab animal facility. The security control, because usually for large animal facilities, they have airlocks, so double door airlocks, and some of them you can either have a fingerprinting, a card system, and in very strict areas, even retinal scans, depending on the biosafety level of the animal facility. And even for these large animal facilities, they do an automatic, of course, washing and drinking water system. So again, this is also incorporated in the electrical system of your facility. Now, there is a separate waste area in the lab animal facility area, no? So it's not in the lab animal facility building, but it is located outside, but within the vicinity of the area. So the reason why it's separate is in order for proper segregation and temporary storage of waste materials, and also ease in hauling the different waste from the facility, especially biomedical waste that would be collected by DNR accredited waste disposal companies. And of course, the specifics of this would be discussed by either Dr. Katap or Dr. Hernandez. For the construction specifics, okay, I think we cannot do this. Us end users or even us, the laboratory medicine veterinarian, we cannot do this alone. So it's a collaboration with the consultant and the construction firm that you will hire in order to come up with a good design appropriate for the requirements of the end users and the operational team of your lab animal facility. So it's a collaboration among the end users, the design task, the architecture and engineering, and of course the senior oversight group that would be responsible for acquiring the budget for the lab animal facility. So just to give you an idea, this is a layout of the Institute of Biology Laboratory Animal facility that they have. So they have an existing building and they renovated it based on their research activities or animal research. So on the top, you can see the main entrance, okay? And then, of course, their restroom is located In the front area, you have a very big procedure room there in the wash area. And then they have the quarantine room. And then they have the storage room for their feeds and other minor equipment. And then what they have now is a separate mouse and rat experimental room. So this is used by faculty members of the Institute of Biology in UP Diliman. Next is the laboratory animal experimental facility of the Institute of Chemistry in UP Diliman. So you can see that they have two animal rooms. So most of the research are using mouse. So they do have a separate clean corridor, and then they have at the back, so continuous is the clean corridor going into their washing area and storage area. So their fume hood is also located there. And then, of course, they do have a front door and a back door. And then, of course, they do have the corridor that goes all the way to the main entrance of their animal facility. Next is the lab animal facility of the Marine Science Institute in UP Diliman. So they have a separate autoclave room. They have a storage room for their feeds, cages, and other equipment. And then they have a separate door where you have the personnel changing room. And then they have two animal rooms. And right now they are also um, housing mice for their researches. They have a separate quarantine room, and they have that testing or procedure room and experiment room. This is the animal facility at the National Institute of Molecular Biology and Biotechnology. So as you can see, they have a separate rooms for their inbred strains, and they also have a separate room for their nude mouse because they were doing also researches using the nude mouse. So what you can see in the nude mouse, so you have that anteroom, and then you have the main nude mouse room, so equipped with individually ventilated caging system in order to maintain these immunodeficient animals. No? And of course, they have their cell culture cabinet there. So the design is really flexible in terms of the needs that you would do for your research activities. And the other room that they have is for their inbred strains. So you have a separate anteroom wherein this is where the personnel can get their additional PPEs of lab gowns, slippers, and the main entrance to their mouse room. And of course, at the back is their washing area, storage area, and the autoclave that they are using for further disinfection of certain materials. Now, this is the UPLB Lab Animal Facility that we designed in collaboration with one of the past president, the current past president, and the ALAC consultant for the Asia Pacific region, Dr. Melissa Rondina, one of my former students. So we designed it. As you can see, we are aiming for a big lab animal facility. So you can see in the main entrance. So this is where you can find the administration and personnel office and kitchen dining area. So the next layer is where you would have the cleaning area. So you have that dirty side that I'm talking about. You have the automatic cage washer system, the clean area, the walk-in autoclave, the clean equipment storage room, and then you have that corridor that would have, of course, the male and female dressing room equipped with lockers and showers. and then you would have the stock room and feed storage room, and then you have that clean corridor that you can enter. And these are the different animal rooms with the appropriate anteroom and back room. And you would see that there is a dirty corridor that is going to the dirty side of the cleaning area. So this is also designed, equipped with a clean elevator and a dirty elevator. So the dirty elevator would be the one bringing in the autoclave and clean uh, integrated racks and cages and waterers, as well as drinking waters. And of course, we have a dirty elevator that would be bringing down the used cages and waterers and other materials. So this is a three-floor designed laboratory animal facility, since it's the aim that hopefully the UP system, this is only named UP-LB, but the proposal was done for the UP system so that we can be able to breed and keep the different outbred, inbred, and even transgenic or knockout mice that would cater to research activities, not only for the UP system, but also for other academic institutions in the Philippines. So with that, in terms of maintenance of lab animal facility, I think you need to be very smart in designing the lab animal facility. I think design a lab animal facility that would cater to your requirements and research activities. And the reason for this is because maintaining it is very laborious and very expensive. So I can just imagine it's a 24-hour, 7 days HVAC system. So the electricity alone is very expensive. And all other utility expense would add up to the cost of maintenance. No? So the bigger the facility and operation, this would be requiring a bigger budget, personnel. The standard operating procedures would also be tedious. And especially if you're planning to breed animals and keep colonies, so there are a lot of regular tests for numerous bacterial, viral, parasitic, even fungal organisms that you need to check on your sentinel animals in order to ensure good quality of your animals. And also, you need to do genotyping to ensure homozygosity of your animals. So maintaining animals in lab animal facility is very expensive. So that's why if it's unnecessarily that you need to breed them, I think the in and out system is much better. When I say in and out system, so you buy the appropriate animals that you would use for research activities, and you do an endpoint of euthanizing or sacrificing your animals. With that, you don't keep the animals, and at the same time, the maintenance cost would also be limited. So with that, let me end my talk by saying that design and construction of lab animal facility should be based on end users' requirements and also the budget, earmarked budget for this. And most importantly, you need to have a very good architectural engineering group with a very good track record in designing and building laboratory animal facilities. And with that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Doc Ami. So, for that, another enlightening lecture. So, the floor is now open for questions. Okay, so wala po ako nakikita. So, I'll give time for our participants to ask their questions. So, I have a few questions, Doc Ami. First, is it important or even required for the Aya cook to be part of the design, or do they have to check the design before they can actually, or the institution can actually proceed with the construction?
Actually, that's a very good